Working in ESL or TEFL can be super confusing. A lot of people get into it and find themselves with loads of questions and not very many answers. So I thought I'd do my bit to help out. I'm Will from Enchanted ESL and I've been an English language teacher since 2015. I've taught in language academies, in state bilingual schools, and now I'm an independent private tutor. So I went on Reddit to see what people were talking about, and I've picked out some of the more salient questions and topics, which I'll answer here. And if you have your own doubts or questions, don't hesitate to write them in the comments or email me directly at will@enchantedesl.com. Okay, so this question is from the TEFL subreddit, and it asks whether you should use the native student names or an anglicised version. This is a common thing that comes up when you're teaching in a country where the language is related to English, like it has a Latin root or a Germanic root. For example, John is Juan in Spanish and Jan in many parts of Central Europe. And Mary becomes Maria in pretty much all Romance languages. I actually had a conversation with some of my students about this the other day. Their school teacher insists on using the anglicised version of their names in English classes, and they hate it. It's not their name, and names are important. They're a huge part of our identity. And while it's fun to know what your name translates to in different languages, being called that every day gets tiring. You want to be called what you choose. Even within our own language, this is true. My full name is William, but I don't really like that. I much prefer to be called Will, and I would not like it at all if people here in Spain started calling me Guillermo. Of course, there are some students who will like it, and if they ask to be called by their anglicised version of the name, then go ahead. If not, don't. It doesn't help with their immersion into the language, and you'll just end up with loads of annoyed students. Next up, we have a question from the TESL subreddit about preparing students for different exams, particularly the Cambridge and Trinity exams. The teacher sees it's a requirement for various jobs and wants to know if there are any resources out there. Well, exam preparation is a big part of my job. I've prepared Cambridge extensively, from A2 all the way up to C1. I've prepared loads of students for it. And in recent years, I've been preparing more and more Trinity too. And I'll be honest, it's not my favourite thing to do. But it is important. English proficiency qualifications are super important in the international job market. Here in Spain, they're becoming more and more vital to a strong CV. Regardless of which exam you're teaching, the best place to start is going to that exam's website. There's always a teacher's guide with practice exams, mark schemes, and sometimes even a whole curriculum. You have to find out which skills and techniques are required for that particular exam, and find out what your students are good at, and then train them in the things that they need to get better at. It's not good enough just teaching them general English. Each exam has its own quirks and features and the special way of doing it, and you can, well, exploit that. This is why I'm not a big fan, because you have to teach the test. You're not really teaching them proper English. But when your students get results, it's worth it. For Cambridge, on my website, enchantedesl.com, I have a whole bunch of articles about preparing for the B2 first, which is the most common one. It goes through each part of the test and the requirements and what you can do to help your students pass. And the concepts there will apply to B1 and C1 exams too. I'll put links to them down in the description. And who knows, in the future, I might make some videos about preparing for the Cambridge and the Trinity too. When I was starting to teach Cambridge, I found that Teacher Phil was a fantastic resource. His content is aimed at students preparing themselves for the exams, but as a teacher you can get a whole lot from it too. He has a YouTube channel as well as his website, and I'll link all of that down in the description. He is great. This question is from the ESL Teachers subreddit, and it's about portable whiteboards. This is massive if you're teaching individuals or small groups. Most of my private classes are in students' houses, so I need something that I can take with me that I can write and draw on easily. I get these A4 dry erase pockets. If you put a blank sheet of paper inside, they're essentially a mini whiteboard. They're super thin and light, and I can carry about 10 of them around with me, and it doesn't weigh that much. And those 10 I can give out to students and they can use them as well. Plus you can put other worksheets and materials inside, and then you can reuse them. Students can just write on them and then erase later. This is perfect for playing things like bingo or labeling pictures and a whole bunch of other things. The only thing they're not great for is standing upright, because they're quite floppy. But if you're just doing a class with an individual or a small group, you just lie them on the table and everybody can see it. You can get them pretty cheap too. About £1 or euro or dollar per pocket on Amazon. And often they come with a bunch of marker pens and an eraser. They do get dirty after a while and they won't last forever, but I get a ton of use out of them. Now we have a question from the TEFL subreddit about finding games and conversation activities for a tutoring class with 2 boys aged 10 and 11. A lot of tutors will find themselves in this situation. They get a new class and they've got to come up with loads of things to do. And for me, that's really easy to answer because there are loads of options. First of all, you can do roleplay. Roleplay is fantastic because it gets them up and about developing their speaking and fluency because it's all improvised. You give them a scenario and each of them a role and they act it out. It's super fun and great with kids of about this age because they can use their imagination and creativity, and their language skills will improve rapidly. I have a whole series on how to do roleplay on this channel. I'll link it up there and down in the description. And if you sign up to my monthly newsletter, I'll send you a whole bunch of roleplay scenarios for free. Second, there are loads of awesome games that you can play. For general English, you can play Battle Word, Swap the Word, Monster Factory, Word Showdown, Name 3 or Go Fish, and many others. To focus on speaking particularly, I would recommend Beach Bundle, Say and Draw, or Similo. I have a ton of videos on this channel with loads of great games that you can use. I've got a whole playlist which I'll also link in the description. Go check it out if you're looking for games. The third thing you can do, which I am super excited about, is tabletop role-playing games. This is the holy grail of English activities, and especially with kids around that age, they are perfect. Basically, you combine role-playing and games to create this wild and amazing story over multiple sessions. They can last you a term, even a year, or even longer. I've had some games that have gone on for absolutely ages, and my students adore them. Students play a character in a world of adventure and mystery. They solve different problems, they go on quests, and all the while they use their English to interact with the world. You, as the teacher, describe to them a situation and all of the things in front of them, and they use their English to say what they want to do. Dungeons and Dragons is the most famous tabletop role-playing game, but I wouldn't recommend it. It's way too complicated. I've enjoyed playing Tales from the Loop, which is an 80s sci-fi mystery kind of thing, and there's also Dragonbane if you want that heroic fantasy. In fact, there are tons and tons of games out there that you could choose. But if you're looking for one that's specifically designed for English classes, well, I've made one. It's currently in playtesting, but the results coming out are incredible. It's called the Enchanted RPG. It's super simple, hugely fun, and I've designed it to promote teamwork and plenty of English learning. Honestly, this could be the only thing you ever need for this kind of tutoring class. If that sounds like your cup of tea, you can follow the progress as I go through playtesting and learn how to play it yourself. You can go and watch the first video in the series, up there, down in the description, where I go over what the game is and my principles in designing it. Whew, that was a lot of questions. I hope I've answered them to their fullest extent. And of course, if you have any more questions or doubts, don't forget to write them in the comments or email them directly to me at will@enchantedesl.com. But for now, I've been Will from Enchanted ESL, wishing you all the joy and success in your teaching. See ya!